Hey, welcome to Dave's Imaginations. Today we're going to recap our game from Thursday, November 17th. Dave's Imaginations presents Dark Queen Ascension, The Fallen. Stay with me. So, when last our adventurers met, we had just got done with a shopping episode in Waterdeep, and we said farewell to our friend Varinka, and hello to our new guide of Wandering Barkworm, a wizard, a Furbolg wizard. And we welcome him into our adventuring team, and he leads us from Waterdeep on our mission to the Misty Forest, where we are in search of the green dragon Chuth and his rider Neronvain. We've been told that we need to go to a settlement, elf village in Misty Forest that oddly was not destroyed by Chuth and Neronvain. That all the other villages that they were aware of, many of the villages in the Misty Forest have been destroyed, but this one, though attacked, was not destroyed. And we've been assigned to go to Alton to talk to the survivors and see what they know and what if they can lead us, give us any clues to the whereabouts of Chuth and Neronvain. So we're on this path, and as we lead, we take the road from Waterdeep to Daggerford, the Trader's Way. And in our world where the Sword Coast is in war, the Green Horde with the Dragon Cultists and the Red Wizards on one side and the everyone else on the other side, this road is protected, is well patrolled and safe, and our group has gotten horses, and we took, I think it was a 3-day travel from Waterdeep to Daggerford. At Daggerford, we had a decision to make. Do we go up to Jolkoon and enter the Misty Forest there, or do we continue down the path on the path down to the way in and make our way up through the Misty Forest all the way to the north end of the Misty Forest where our guide says, where Wandering Barkworm says Alton is. Ultimately, we decided that we would board the horses and we would enter Ruckus's lamp. Now, he has this, I think of it like a genie lamp, but within this genie's lamp is one of those marvelous mansions. So the party enters this marvelous mansion in the lamp, and our very own Gloin transforms into a dragon and flies the group from Daggerford to the north end of the Misty Forest. And then from that north end of this Misty Forest, we make our way, the party makes their way toward Alton. And as they enter this Misty Forest, this forest, dense vegetation, even though it's fall, it's still dense vegetation. And as the name implies, it is obscured by a dense fog. And as our party makes its way through this forest, through the mist, they first encounter some destroyed elf homes, some tree houses, if you would, tree structures, and they come to this house and they hear a rustling noise, and they go and they investigate, and there's this abomination. Now they had heard in Daggerford of rumors of abominations in the Misty Forest, as many of the refugees from the forest, the elves that have been chased out, have made their way to Daggerford as a place of safety. And they talked to those people, and there's rumors of these monsters, these abominations that have invaded the forest. And they go to, as they enter the forest and they find one of these elven structures, they go and they hear this rustling, and only to find these medium-sized, two-legged, fleshy creatures, big mouth maw, right? And they go in and I think it was Olak poked his head in, and he saw that one of these things was eating at the carcass of an elf, and we had a short pause. Now there ended up being 3 of those creatures, and our party made short work of them. So they scratched their head a little bit. They scratched their head a little bit about they thought these creatures would be more terrifying, more robust, harder to defeat, and these were not. Now, also, after an investigation, after a medicine check, Gloin investigated the body and saw that these elves weren't killed by these creatures; they were killed by poisoning, and also by investigating the wound, there were some unnatural growths in the wound that was also not caused by this creature necessarily. Though that's a bit of a mystery what those growths were. They found two of these structures in their travels that had those creatures, and they defeated them easily. And they probably found, and we said that they found more as they continued down their path. But an hour into their travels, they come up to the city of Alton. And in the city of Alton, the survivors were rebuilding their village, and they're working on it. And our party went in and asked them a number of questions, and they answered with. They told the story. The villagers, the elves at this village, told the story of they were attacked and rampaged and all this damage and death. But as soon as the battle began, maybe 10 minutes into it, after a lot of damage had been done, a lot of lives had been lost, the dragon, its rider, and its forces of people and dragon cultist outfits, humanoids, they just left as if summoned, and they just left and retreated, and they left to the south and the west, and with really bewilderment. But these elves were very thankful to the gods that they did leave. And in description, they described this rider of this dragon as nimble and acted like an elf, not a dwarf, not a clumsy dwarf, but a nimble elf. And the mask that this rider was, it had green themes to it, but it was more of a tribal mask than a dragon mask. It was definitely not in the fashion. It was not designed to look like a dragon. The mask was, that is, and so that was curious. Now, with the insight checks, we learned that the leader of this elf, the elf that's talking to him, I think it was Gavin or Galen or something like that. But we learned that he was nervous, and he played it off like, yeah, I'm nervous because I have strangers in my town. We're rebuilding, and I've just lost my family. And yet, with the insight check, we just get the sense there's more than that. And in that village, we took our long rest, and we had a meal, and we used our talents to help them heal their wounded. And in the night watch, during Strider's watch, the second watch, at the same time the elves were having their watch, it was the same leader's turn to have his watch. And at some point during his watch, Galen, this elf leader, went down into the wilderness, out of the protection of the tree fort and into the wilderness. And a half hour later, he came back. And now Strider chose not to pursue him, not to follow him and see what was going on, but he did take note, and he did report that to the rest of the crew. And in the next morning, as they were going through, Ruckus even had a side conversation with one of the other elves, but it was the same story. Travesty of the loss, elf village, and this person had no additional knowledge. However, when Strider confronted Galen, I believe it is, of his going out, he just said he thought he heard a noise and he wanted to be thorough to go check it out. Our party didn't buy that so much, but they also didn't press him for any further details. But eventually they had their breakfast, and they made their way from the elf village, heading south and west in the direction that they said the forces, the dragon, had left. And on their path, on their way, it wasn't but an hour's walk outside of the village when they hear a woman screaming, the tree falling, and a woman screaming off into the distance. Now, also remember, this forest is heavily, they're making their way through the woods, and it's heavily obscured with this mist and the vegetation around them. But they hear this off to the side, and they rush to the aid, and they see this woman covered in first of all, laying on the ground with a tree over the top of her, and she is in clothing that seems to be made out of leaves. And Strider conjures the ground to lift the tree up, and they help this woman out. This woman who ends up being a druid of the forest, a caretaker, a warden. The tree actually stands up, as is a awakened tree, a large creature, her companion, and she thanks the party and says, "Not everyone would help, and you did, and for this reason we'll give you." She gives them a boon. She makes this wreath of flowers that says, as long as you wear these wreaths, that you will be protected from the scrying of the dragon, of the creatures that he can see through and talk with, and this wreath will give you some amount of protection, and it'll also protect you from the fear that the dragon will exude, push onto you, and will protect you from the fear of the dragon. And so she gives each of them a wreath for this purpose. She also tells them the story of how the shadows have taken over the forest, and this forest is full of sorrow. And we go through the different types of sorrow-sworn creatures, and that before the party would be able to find Chuth and Neronvain, they would have to defeat each of these sorrowful or sorrow-sworn creatures. And she goes through the different kinds, the wretched, the fallen, the lost, the lonely, and the hungry, and the angry. I don't know if I got those in order, but those were the sorrow-sworn, and I'll put those up here. We can see the different kinds of sorrow-sworn there are, and that we, the party, must defeat one of each of those type. And the party said, "Oh yeah, we met the wretched, and defeated a handful of those already." And so they weren't as tough as we thought. But she warns, yeah, these other ones, they're much more tough. And in addition to the wreaths and this information, she also says she agrees with the elves that you need to travel to the Mistvale, as she called it, the Mistvale Lagoon and the Mistvale Falls. And at those falls, you should find the lair, the home of this great green beast, the dragon, that is being called Chuth. And so, but to aid in their path and to afford them some amount of protection, she will reveal a path, reveal a staircase, overgrown staircase, that if they stay on this path, they will be given some amount of protection, and it will lead them to this Mistvale Lagoon. And to be careful, although they need to battle each of these sorrowsworn, defeat each of the different types of sorrowsworn, they are difficult, and she warns them not to wander, stray too much from the stairwell that she produces. And with that, am I missing anything? We did say at one point back in the village that Barkworm tried to scry on the description, using the description of the mask, and as he did his scrying and started to focus in his vision, as we described his scrying ability as a tossing up of leaves, and as they fall and they coalesce into forms, his scrying was interrupted by a pair of dragon eyes that blink and stop the scrying. So that happened back in the village. And then we fast forward to this encounter with this druid. And after the conversation of the wreath, of the sorrowsworn, and the path, the druid transforms into an owl and flies off with her tree companion lumbering after her. with that, our party continues down these stairs. These stairs I described as 6. I think I changed that to 10 feet so you could go too wide. But this path just 10 feet wide as you go, overgrown with trees and brush and the mist, the fog that surrounds you as they continue down the path. Eventually, you can start to hear these unnatural sounds from beyond your vision, and I had them roll a stealth, and everyone did okay, except for Olak's Mini, who I role played as, got separated from the group and said, "Oh, wait for me!" And through that noise of proclamation, these sounds that had been going on in the mist stopped and went silent, and that's when we rolled initiative. And one of those beasts, one of those Saurustorm, the Lost, with its spindly arms, 5 arms, each with these sword-like talons on them, from out of the mist, they take a swipe at Barkworm, narrowly missing. If it weren't for his Barkworm had initiative, and in his initiative he readies himself for a dodge. Good thing that he did, as out of the mist come these saber-like talons from this lost creature, a lost Saurustorm creature, as it starts to jab at Barkworm, and that's where we began our initiative, and eventually they were able to deal with this one. But from the mist, 2 more appear, and they start to do their battle. Again, taking a swipe at Barkworm, but another one making an attack at Strider. And this Saurustorm was able to connect with his attack and grab Strider in and engulf him and grapple him, and dealing at first piercing damage, but then through the grapple some sort of psychic damage, and then drags Strider off the path and into the wilderness beyond their sight. And that is where we ended our evening, with what is happening to Strider. And the other Saurustorm there was disengaged and went to with its companion Saurustorm, this other lost Saurustorm, and into the mist, as only the cries of Strider can be heard. And that's where we left, and that's where we'll begin next week. That's where we'll begin I say next week, in 2 weeks, as next week is our Thanksgiving break. So we will return in 2 weeks to see what has happened to Strider, and will he survive? Our people are quite powerful, but yet to go retrieve Strider, they will have to leave the path. So what consequences will there be from leaving the path? Maybe you'd put down below in the comments, what do you think might happen if you leave the path? What do you suspect could happen? And I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are. I do have an idea of what's going to happen, so we'll see if we line up. So thanks for watching. It was certainly a fun and interesting night, exciting night, as mysterious Misty Forest, as we search for the dragon and its rider and try to learn what is going on. And so I had fun. I hope everyone else had as much fun as I did. I look forward to our next adventure in 2 weeks. Until then, if you wouldn't mind, before you sign off and click off, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, and subscribe if you haven't. I know most of you already have. And otherwise, and leave a comment. I do love comments, so I appreciate that. And otherwise, until then, I appreciate it. And until next time, take care.